Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic video. Hope everyone's doing good. It's another beautiful day here in Midcoast, Maine. The weather has been pretty amazing. So it's about freaking time. So hope everyone's doing good. The Yeah, so I've been looking into seeing what's playing in the theater lately, and I find it's been wicked disappointing, and it's been there's like a feels like there's a wicked dry spell going on. I was even surprised too because this past weekend was of course a big holiday weekend. It was Memorial Day weekend, and I didn't really see anything that was out. Even new things that came out, big blockbuster movies or things that I was nothing that I was excited about, and nothing that I really had seen in the theater, or any trailers of anything. Really, really surprising. I remember in the years past when I've talked about I used to at one point quite a few years ago I used to go to the movies like every weekend almost. It was like a thing to do with a little group of friends that I had at the time that we would go, and it was exciting. Every weekend I would pick up the Free Press, which is a little local paper here. I'd go scan the movie release section, and there was a guy who was writing reviews in the paper, and there was always new things coming out every weekend, and it was great year round. But yeah, it's very different now, and so one movie I heard that was really really good. I have a friend or a friend of a friend, who used to work at Flagship Cinema. They were the manager of Flagship Cinema. I had Kaylee Anderson last year. It's funny saying it last year, but it was last year technically. Or actually, no, I should say it was earlier this year. It was few months ago now. And Kaylee, I think it was in February or March. She came on. She was a guest I had on Film Fanatic, and it was a really great interview. We talked about mainly about how do you run a business that is a physical place that you go to watch movies, hence a movie theater, and how and navigating through the world now with all of the streaming platforms that are available. And so it was a really great interview, and we might do a part two. We might do a second part. We're gonna see. But anyway, she had gone to a big movie convention. It's one of the perks of her job. She went to a big movie convention where they showed a bunch of newer films, like a pre-screening of newer movies that were coming out this year. And one of the movies they talked about seeing was the new Stephen King movie, or not the new Stephen King movie, but it's based on a Stephen King short story called The Boogeyman. And I thought that looked pretty good. I had seen the trailer when I went to go see Evil Dead Rise, which was the last movie I saw in the theater. That was a lot of fun. But it was probably almost 2 months ago now. And they had the trailer for The Boogeyman, and I knew it was a short story by Stephen King, and they made a movie out of it. And I saw, again, I'm not one to really read about reviews or dive too into it, but I generally, when I hear about a movie or a movie that I'm excited, there's a little a little group of YouTube people that I really like, that I watch. Moods 616 being my favorite. Chris Stuckman. There's I talked about Cody Leach. Kind of not really watching his channel anymore, but I do watch his show. Try not to. I don't know. I went into a whole big thing about that the other day. And then there's another YouTube person, this girl from Australia, Spooky Astronauts. She specializes in all horror, and she's pretty good. She covers a lot of things that are just available on the streaming platforms, and that are, a lot of films that are produced and are like, original productions from a lot of these streaming platforms like Hulu, Netflix. A lot of those shows and movies I don't really see, and to be honest, the ones I have seen that are, kind of original productions from a lot of these companies, I haven't really been into. I just feel like I've been really disappointed. There's been two exceptions where the Hellraiser remake that I saw last year, which was, I believe, a Hulu original production. It was all financed by Hulu, which is one of the major companies does that does provide streaming. That's really great. That's a really great movie. I really enjoyed that a lot, and I wish I could have gotten the chance to see that in the theater. And then the other movie, which came out a few years ago now, which is crazy, which was a Netflix original, was the last Martin Scorsese movie called The Irishman, which is a awesome movie. 3 hour epic, incredible movie. Those were two movies that I saw that were all, they were exclusively original productions that were financed by Netflix or Hulu. And there's been, tons of other productions and other films. And there's been a handful of them that I've seen that have eventually come to DVD or whatnot, or Blu-ray. And they just seem really, I don't know, kind of undercooked, underdeveloped. They're okay. They have pretty decent production value, but nothing I've been excited about, where I've been just fired up about. So it's when I think of, well, okay, two examples: the Hellraiser movie and then The Irishman. It's like 3 years in between. I mean, that's crazy. So, and there's probably been, a million movies released that way since. But so, yeah, I don't know, disappointed with that. But the Boogeyman, I saw the trailer for it, and at first I thought it looked good. I saw it in the theater, and I thought originally when I heard about that movie that it was going to be just a streaming production, or only available on streaming, through a streaming platform. But it is getting a theatrical release, because I did see the trailer in the theater. And Spooky Astronauts did a little review. She got to go see an advanced screening of it, and I really think she is really good. I find my taste pretty much, really line up with her tastes, and she's really, very good at what she does, and she didn't really give it all that much praise, and I just saw a general thing of that movie. So yeah, and it's like, so I don't know of anything else that's coming out that I'm excited about. Of course, there are 2,000 other fucking Marvel movies coming out, and I honestly could just give a shit about going to see them. I'm just burnt out on Marvel movies, and it's crazy. I always, just saying that, I'm like really surprised. Huge fan of James Gunn. He's an awesome director. I loved what he did with the last Suicide Squad movie. That's an awesome movie that came out, and I saw that in the theater when it came out. Geez, almost 2 years ago now. And he just released the part three, Guardians of the Galaxy, and you know, I've been really disappointed with most of the Marvel movies, and they've just been okay or just not good at all. Nothing has been great. Everything, I really believe that everything since Endgame has been anticlimactic in the Marvel universe. They built it up to this apex, and it was just, amazing. They set the bar really, really high. I feel like that movie really elevated, what the kind of a standard should be. And then after that, I do. I I should say though. I should say, with the exception of Endgame, which I think is an amazing movie. The last Spider-Man movie, I think that that is also an incredible movie. I think that movie was just awesome, and that came out probably about 2 years ago now. So it came out a couple of years after Endgame, or a year or so after Endgame, and that was the third Spider-Man movie, and that movie is amazing. And I will say that for me personally, that's actually the cutoff point of where I started seeing other films in the universe that were good, but they they were they had some things about them that were really great. One movie I did like a lot was Shang-Chi, which was a Marvel movie, and then obviously the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie, which is awesome. Totally awesome. Totally underrated. That movie totally bombed in a box office, which is crazy to me. So but basically after that, everything has been mediocre or terrible, mostly terrible. And I feel like everything was really elevated. The bar was raised really, really high. And then ever since then, I just feel like they can't keep up with that momentum of those two films, especially Endgame and the last Spider-Man movie. It's been a really strange time that way. I do want to see the new Spider-Man animated movie, but we'll see. But I have no interest in going to see the new Guardians, which is crazy. And there's been I don't know how many other movies since then. It's like so it's weird. It's a weird time, but I spend most of my time when it comes to movies, I've been buying a lot more movies and I've been watching lots of cool movies. I've been discovering lots of new movies, so that's been really awesome. So as far as uh, entertainment goes, and watching films, talking about movies, thinking about movies, and buying them, watching them for the first time or rewatching them, there's so many things that I have, so I'm fine. Yeah, as far as that department goes. But I do miss that experience. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But there's as of now there is absolutely nothing that I can think of off the top of my head that I'm excited about seeing. And I don't know what the hell that's about. Really strange. And before I get into this awesome movie that I'm going to talk about and review, tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, Quantum will be playing at the Gypsy Rose Tavern in Camden, Maine. This is our second time playing there. It's a I've talked about the Gypsy Rose Tavern quite a bit on this channel. It's been a wonderful, well, yeah, wonderful gift for the community and to the community. It's been a really cool thing seeing something develop and blossom into a fully realized, more or less like a community based thing for local musicians to perform their music, to help make a lit if those musicians are doing it for a living, or whether it's a side job, to keep these to keep folks employed. I and I kind of consider myself one of those folks. I make most of my income, I think, during the summer, or at least it has been, but a good portion of my income is with gigs and things like that. So it's a real important part too. But so it's a and then also just for the community uh, at whole. You can look at just people in general who love to go out and see live music and go out and have social, like little social gatherings. It's been a wonderful place, and it's been a wonderful development, especially that it started in in the middle of winter. They opened the first week of January of 2023. So it's pretty cool. It's interesting to see what this place will be like by summertime, because they're killing it, dinner wise. They are just killing it, and shows have been pretty good there too. So And it's been kind of a cool experience. I was really involved with that place in the beginning. I still am. I'm still playing there. Like I said, we were playing there tomorrow. But when I was there in the beginning, I was playing lots of gigs almost every week and kind of a part of the whole thing. I was helping, trying to promote the shows, trying to bring people in, trying to bring attention to it for whatever it's worth. And it was really cool to be part of something that was nothing at first, and then to see it, slowly build and become this. I think it's evolved now to where, for the most part, it's a destination, and it's known as a place. I think there's still some things that need to maybe happen and develop with the the venue aspect of it. One thing I've noticed with that place, with the Gypsy Row, is like the food is really great. It's a beautiful atmosphere. It's got a real cool kind of tavern vibe. It's very casual. They serve like pub food, but it's like really high level pub food. Like they make their own. A lot of the food that they make is all fresh, and it's all on, made there. And they have music, at least 2 or 3 times a week. One of the things too is like when they were doing music, especially when they first hit it hard, they were doing music constantly, and I kind of felt like that's awesome and amazing. But I kind of thought, well, maybe it could reach a point of where it can go and go and go, and then it just kind of loses momentum because people just you know s- just stop going because they maybe they get inundated with too many options. I don't know. People are funny that way, myself included. But it seems like it's kept going, and they've kept it pretty consistent with how they're doing it. The weird thing is, though, sometimes I feel like their dinner crowd is always there. I feel like they always have a really big dinner rush, and they're killing it as far as the dinner thing goes. It seems every time I've been in there. And it's but the other thing that's funny about it is it seems like the crowd that goes there is not a late night crowd. Most I mean, again, most places are done by 9 o'clock or 7 o'clock sometimes. People's habits are very different as far as going out. People do still like to go out to late night things, but it's a different thing now. But one thing I noticed with Gypsy, with the exception of a few times, things seem to kind of wind down there around 10 o'clock, you know. And they have some things, some events of where they schedule them at like 7 o'clock. And usually when they give bands the slots there, they're 3 hour slots. And a lot of the times they'll have, you start at 7, you're done by 10, or you start at 8, you're done by 11. That's typically the time frames that they always give. And I notice around, go and again I go there a lot to see music. I've been there a shit ton of times to support some of my friends who play there, and had really great experiences going there to see, just as a fan of going to see live music. And I've noticed it, like, even in the beginning of maybe a set or the night of music, it will be pretty happening, but it starts drifting towards the end. There's been a couple times of where people will stay, but generally it seems like it's hard to, you know, have keep that momentum going throughout the night. And sometimes nobody shows up. There's been occasions where not many people have shown up at all, and it's kind of weird. And and I've had this discussion with friends about that, where one of my buddies who I play music with, and he's also, has a lot of the same interests that I have as far as he loves to go see live music. He attributes the problem that we all face in this community is that there's just not enough people to go around to support music fully. There's just not enough people. So if you have, like, say, 2 events or 3 events going on in one, say on a Friday night or Saturday night, one or two of those events is going to really suffer where nobody's going to show up. And he's always kind of said that that's part of the problem, and then also that's the reason behind why a lot of places will sometimes totally radically change their format or close even or cut their entertainment or cut their budget or you know all these other things. But he attributes it all to that there's not enough people in the area to support it. There's that that niche or that local kind of base of people that are very much into the music. But he also says that well, those folks that are that or that are part of that are really the musicians. And so I don't know. I don't I I I understand what his take is, and I agree with it to a degree, but um, I also kind of disagree with it, and I think it's complicated sometimes. I think there are I think there's a huge amount of people in this area. Of course, compared to bigger places, bigger towns and other cities, it's significantly smaller, or even say compared to Portland. But I think that there are every time I've gone out to where there's an event and it's promoted really well, usually it's there's a lot of people, and people will be geared up to go and they'll be fired up about the event. So it's always a little bit different. And you know, with our experience playing at the All Roads Festival, there were, and I granted that's a big festival. There's a lot of folks that come down from Portland, but I saw lots of people that were probably not from Portland that were coming out. And for the most part, every place that I went to and saw music, there was a lot of people. Even for the most part, even in the earlier parts of the day. But at nighttime, forget about it. Like every place was packed. And and I think there's probably a couple thousand people that would come and go through some of these events and through some of these shows. So, and I kind of maintain that the thing that's the hardest for me, the thing that I find is the biggest stepping stone or just the biggest hurdle is that people people have pretty busy lives, but I just generally think that people tend to stay home more. People tend to people are busy, but when people have time off, they like to stay home, do their Netflix and chill thing, and don't feel motivated to go out because they can watch something on their computer screen. I maintain that that's what it is mostly about. That is something that probably won't change because you can't, change people, I guess, to a degree. But you can maybe make them aware of it. But I feel like that's the biggest thing because I know of, I can think of 10 people off the top of my head that that are in that circumstance of where they choose not to go out to see music and nobody's obligated to or support art, gatherings that do it spend their time in that very kind of situation of where they will stay home, watch Netflix, order takeout, and that will be they don't want to spend that dollar. They don't want to do this or for the food costs or whatever. They will stay home. They will do that. And I think it's because of having everything more or less easy access at your fingertips and that you can stay home. I think, yes, we do have a smaller base of a public that's going to support music and things compared to other big cities. But I don't think that that's the reason why sometimes that happens. I think it's really, for me, the biggest factor is are people's habits. You know, I know a lot of people that are in their late 20s, early 30s that will be home or in bed by 10. So I don't know. But anyway, that's enough about that. But tomorrow, if you're around in Camden, Maine, we'll be playing tomorrow at 7 o'clock. We're going to be doing a 3 hour set. So very excited about coming back to the Gypsy Rose. It's our second time back. So come on by for some good food and some original music, and it'll be I think it'll be a good time. So today's show I'm super excited about, and the movie I'm talking about today is Ex Machina. I have this on Blu-ray. This movie is just an outstanding sci-fi movie, and it has. I definitely consider this to be, or I think this movie definitely has horror elements, but it is such a awesome sci-fi movie. So incredibly brilliant. It's a brilliant movie. It's the direction, the cinematography, the music, the writing, just top shelf sci-fi movies. Just one of the best sci-fi movies that's come out in more recent years. And Alex Garland, who is the writer and director, he is one of my favorites. This movie came out in 2014. Alex Garland, of course, is the director and the writer. He is a powerhouse. I think he's one of the best directors around, one of the most creative forces in Hollywood. He is really innovative. He doesn't. I feel like he's not afraid to take chances. He's a risk taker as a filmmaker. I feel like he's kind of a maverick. He's ahead of the time. He pushes the envelope, and he's not really, he's generally not concerned about, say, to a degree, a larger audience or like the acceptance of maybe getting a big blockbuster kind of a project. He just, I feel like everything he does is really self-motivated, and it's all culmination of his artistry. And Ex Machina is just an amazing movie. It was the first movie that he directed. He has done some really great films. He has also been involved, in many facets in the entertainment business. He's a published author. He's got a handful of science fiction books that he's written. He also was the writer for a lot of really cool films. One movie that he wrote, was a film that came out in the early 2000s called Sunshine, which is actually a really awesome sci-fi movie. He wrote the screenplay for that. Really cool movie, pretty dark and really interesting. He also was responsible for writing, and I think he produced it, which is such an awesome movie, which is a movie I eventually really want to get. And that is the Judge Dredd film that came out in probably about 7 or 8 years ago. Such an awesome movie. Has nothing to do with the really terrible Sylvester Stallone movie that came out, which is awful. But he did a newer, kind of more graphic novel based rendering of that classic character, speaking of superhero movies or comic book movies. But the Judge Dredd that he was responsible for, where he wrote the story, is just awesome. That movie is totally did that character justice, and I don't feel like that movie's talked about enough. That movie is not really given the amount of praise that it deserves. But Ex Machina, it's just an amazing movie, just an incredible cast. Alicia Vikander plays Ava, a tremendous actress. She's been in quite a few other movies since Ex Machina. I've noticed her in a lot of different movies in passing. And of course, Oscar Isaac is also one of the leads in this film, and he has really become a huge star in Hollywood. He's done, I mean, obviously the biggest things is probably the Star Wars movies. but tremendous actor, and also he is in the newer Dune, Denis Villeneuve's Dune that came out about 2 years ago, which is an amazing movie. He's also going to be in the sequel. Domhnall Gleeson is also in this. He's another actor that I have seen in a ton of movies since this movie. His career has really exploded. Uh, and it's always cool when you see actors that are kind of starting out and they have a movie or a project that is, you know, kind of a big production or kind of a big thing, and you see their careers take off, and they actually these actors or actresses have, real depth to what they can bring, and they they have a real ability to reinvent themselves. Oscar Isaac, all of these actors I've just mentioned, I've seen them in various films, and they truly are like high level actors. Super cool. And Alex Garland, like I said, I think he is one of the best directors working today. He works pretty much all of his films have come through A24. And A24 is kind of an independent label or company that does work outside of Hollywood. They are a very big company right now, but they specialize mostly in doing lots of in more or less independent films, mostly horror and sci-fi. They've worked with Robert Eggers from The Witch has worked with them. There's been a whole bunch of people have worked with them, and Ari Aster, from who made Hereditary, Midsummer. So there's been a whole crop and a whole wave of these of some really talented folks that have come out of that have worked and come out of the A24 camp. Very cool. It's kind of like a branch of Universal Pictures, but they specialize in. Sometimes they get the A24 uh, bundle of films or filmmakers kind of get labeled as like art house because they're not like, I guess the storytelling isn't for a lot of the films that come out of A24 is not really maybe straightforward or popcorn oriented. But to say art house, I don't know. I don't. I can understand that and see that, but I just feel like, well, I think it's more of. I think A24 is really concerned, and part of their whole. I think their whole focus is working with directors and writers and actors who want to like take some chances, but also get really creative and kind of break the mold or the stereotype of what maybe a horror movie should be, or get away from, say, that traditional format that we've seen time and time again. And sometimes, like anything, A24 is very big right now, but they take creative chances and big risks. And so if you consider that mode of operating, or that mode of like creating art as being art house, then maybe it is art house. But I don't really feel like it's art house per se. When I think of art house films, I think of Lars von Trier, for instance. I think of his films as being definitely in the art house realm. He's most well known probably for The Antichrist, Nymphomaniac. He's made some really great movies. Some of his films are definitely, shot in this way of where it has this very foreign kind of sensibility to. He's obviously a German director, so I consider him to be a foreign filmmaker. And he also, crosses genres. He does sci-fi, he does horror, he does dramas. So, but Alex Garland, like I said, I think he's one of the best directors. He also did another film, which I will eventually get to, called Annihilation with Natalie Portman. And Oscar Isaac is also in that movie. And that movie is just incredible. That movie's an acid trip, I think. And again, another sci fi epic. The And then he most recently did a movie that came out, I believe it was last year, called Men, which I've only seen once, and that is a really cool movie too. Very interesting, very strange. It's got one of the weirdest endings, and there's a lot of body horror at the end of it. I really want to see it again. But I think, again, and the other thing that's so great about Alex Garland's work is some of his stuff. Annihilation, I believe, was based on a book, a novel. But he really took, I think, I haven't read the book, but from what I gather, he took a lot of liberties with the story and really made something different. But for the most part, everything that he's involved in, whether he's a writer and especially as a director, a lot of the movies and content that he creates is, all original based. It's all from his head. And I just think that that is really cool and really, that really commands a lot of respect, even if you don't necessarily like his films. But I'm a huge fan of his work, and Ex Machina, like I saw Ex Machina about a few months after it came out, and I had a coworker who I had used to work with. He was really into films, and he had recommended this to me, and I had never heard of it before, and I was just completely floored by this movie. It's it's a real intense movie. It's very dark, but it's very interesting because it really talks about what it is to be human and the emergence of technology and where those things go. And it does dive pretty deep into some real substantial and very important kind of philosophical questions about what it is to be human and morality and your and what makes a person or what consciousness is. And it's essentially about this character played by Oscar Isaac who is creating AI and also deals with the fallout and what happens when there are lines that are crossed that are subjective, and what someone has when someone acquires incredible wealth and also an endless amount of power, what that person does with those things for good or bad, and that's also very subjective. One of the coolest applications that this movie does, or one of the coolest concepts this the Ex Machina brings, is about the use of extreme power and what a person can do with that, and where that one person who assimilates and amasses all of this power, they can adapt this attitude of where they're extremely narcissistic and they feel like they're God in a literal sense. And there's so many great quotes and so many great things about the writing for Ex Machina. One, and probably my favorite part of it is that it touches on Robert Oppenheimer, who was the scientist who created the atomic bomb. And there's quotes, they talk about him in the dialogue of the film. And my favorite quote of his that I just feel is such an interesting thing to think about. Now I've become death, the destroyer of worlds. That's probably Oppenheimer's most famous quote. And he, of course, was responsible for creating the atomic bomb, which destroyed Japan. And it really deals heavily with those topics of, when you take a person or an entity or a corporation assumes that they become so powerful that they're a god and they can create people and they can destroy them. And this film Ex Machina completely focuses on those concepts and those ideas. And plus, at the same time, it's just an incredible sci-fi movie. It's beautifully shot, wonderful music. This Blu-ray transfer is just amazing. I didn't get a chance to see this in the theater. I would have loved to, but I have this. I have Ex Machina obviously on Blu-ray. I have Annihilation on Blu-ray, which is a movie I will eventually get to. I need to get some of his other. I need to get his other films also. Even uh, Judge Dredd, which was something that he wrote, but amazing movie, like I said before. But this is such an awesome movie. This Blu-ray transfer is super awesome. Quality is amazing. It's probably one of the best home movie experiences I have. There's a really cool special features package on here. There's a really interesting Q&A on here, and there's a real awesome interview with Alex Garland. That really he really gives an amazing explanation to his whole like kind of process of how he works as a creative force. Awesome movie, such an awesome movie. This was, I believe that this was the first movie that he ever directed, and since then he's directed three other films: Annihilation, which came out a few years back, and then Men, which came out last year. All really great movies. I think probably my favorite of his films is it might be Annihilation, but just all tremendous movies. And it's so great seeing somebody who's so talented and as a risk taker, but I feel like he's taken sci-fi and also horror and really, he's moved it forward. I think he's got this pioneering vision. It's really unique. He, like I said, he's a risk taker, and and I feel like when you see his films, they're personal, but it feels like it's genuine, and he is really, you know, pushing himself as an artist, pushing the actors, but giving you something new and unique, and taking the genre of science fiction and horror and pushing it forward, moving it forward, giving it something new, putting it in a different light. And I just think that that is so awesome. He's not trying to do this or trying to do that. And I also feel like it's from a genuine place. But Ex Machina, awesome movie. Great way to start checking out any of the work that he has done. And there's many things he's done. Like I said, he's a published author. Also, he's published, I believe, 4 or 5 science fiction horror books. But tremendous. So this is Jason Dean. Thanks again for your support, and we will see you next time. Peace.